was it scary to even just be there and be on the ground there? And then are you right into military action? Or, I mean, what is it like when you first land in Vietnam?
We got acclimated to the climate. When we got off the plane, it was interesting. They lined us up in attention, and a few guys just dropped because of the heat. They just passed out. I had a friend, Junior Reklinski. Junior was one of the guys in the group and the crew. And I said to Junior, when we got back to Cleveland, I said to Junior, I said, let's go to the military. We'll go on a buddy plan. That means you go, every unit you go to, your friend goes with you. And so my recruiting officer said, you can fly helicopters. I wanted to fly.
Okay. So that was really the impetus to go to the military, is you had a desire to fly.
Yeah. And when we got inducted to induction day, Junior was a no-show.
No way.
Yeah. So they put us in alphabetical order. So there's this guy standing next to me, Gary Sabasi, and because Simonic Sabasi. So Sabasi, we're standing there and getting ready to get sworn in. And he's like, let's go have a beer. Forget about this. And I'm like, no, man, I'm here already. I'm just going to do it. So long story short, we get into the military. And then I said to the sergeant, I said, when can I fly helicopters? He says, you can't. You don't even have a high school diploma. I said, okay, what can I do? He said, you can jump out of them. I said, okay. So I went into airborne, then jungle training in Kentucky with 101st Airborne. I was just focused on two things, serving my country and staying alive.
Well, first off, what year was that, Nick?
1967.
Oh, wow. And I guess at that point, I mean, was it scary to go into the military? I mean, knowing that you were going to be jumping out of planes and going to Vietnam, or I mean, what was the feeling as a young man going to war?
As a young man, I was like, I was always a patriot, even though I did bad things, I was always 110% for America. So as a young man, I didn't even think about, could I get killed? I thought about what does my country need and what can I do to serve it? Mm-hmm. And that was my focus. But I love heights, so I loved jumping out of planes. It was a rush. In fact, fast forward, I was skydiving up until about 20 years ago, and then I took my son skydiving, and he's like his first jump he did great. Second jump he ate some dirt, so he was freaking out, and he came home and he said to Millie, "Mom, don't let Dad skydive anymore. He'll kill himself." So that's when I stopped skydiving. Because behind every successful man, there's a woman telling him he's wrong. No.
Hey, Nick, you had mentioned that you were patriotic, even though, you got in a little bit of trouble as a youth. I mean, what do you attribute that to? Where do you think your patriotism comes from?
I think my dad instilled in me a love for my country that, nowadays, from what I see from the outside, a lot of people don't have that. In fact, one of my grandsons is looking to go into the service, and I'm encouraging him 110%. But I think it's the family needs to, the family unit in our day right now needs to band together and realize that that's the foundation for America, family unit.
Yeah.
And my dad always gave me that foundation. So I was always looking to see what I could do to better the country, so to speak, in the military. I mean, I was just a grunt, meaning I was just one of the troops. I wasn't like a hero or anything. Everything I did heroic was by accident.
So you're in Kentucky doing training for how many months? What was that like? And then when were you deployed overseas?
Okay, I was in Kentucky for like 3 months jungle training, and they had mock-up Vietnam villages. They had it looked just like the jungle, and of course, it was winter. It was cold, but it looked like the jungle. Anyhow, I would volunteer to be Viet Cong. to attack the Americans in the jungle training, which was cool because all the guys were camping out in the woods, freezing their butts off, and I was in a warm barracks eating hot food. So I always managed to get over on everybody else when it came to that. And Gary Sabasi, by the way, he was by divine providence, he was in every unit I was in the military. And he wound up saving my life. I'll tell you about that if you want.
Yeah.
3 months into training, they shipped us over to Nam as a unit, our whole division. And we flew into Cam Bay, and we were deployed into different compounds. And Gary was there. He was in the same platoon I was in throughout my military. He couldn't understand why he'd do KP back in the States and I didn't have to. It was because I bribed the sergeant of the day. I'd bring him stuff. And Gary's like, why you never do KP, man?
Hey, Nick, for those that are ignorant to the military, what is KP?
Kitchen police. It's where you do clean toilets and do kitchen duties and literally peel the potatoes, that kind of thing.
So it sounds like you always knew how to navigate people.
I maneuvered.
Was it scary to even just be there and be on the ground there? And then are you right into military action? Or, I mean, what is it like when you first land in Vietnam?
We got acclimated to the climate. When we got off the plane, it was interesting. They lined us up in attention, and a few guys just dropped because of the heat. They just passed out. So and they got us acclimated. We spent a couple of weeks in base camp, and I was always doing something. We went out and we were in the jungle, and our bazooka gunner got hit. I was just an M16. And the old man, the captain, said, Nick, I want you to take it over, and I want you to get out in the perimeter and shoot that tree down. I aimed at the right. There were 2 trees out there. I aimed at the right tree, and I knocked down the left tree. He said, that's the one I wanted. Thanks. And so I qualified. So I carried this 90 millimeter, it's called, through the jungle, and I had an assistant gunner who used to have straps, and he'd carry the rounds. The rounds were about 2.5, 3 feet long. Anti-tank rounds and anti-personnel rounds. And so one day we were humping through the jungle, and I got caught in the swamp and twisted my ankle, and I went back to base camp for a couple of weeks to get R&R. And while I was in base camp, I hooked up with the guys who ran the ice company, and I used to sell ice to the GIs because nobody could get ice back then, but I did. And then mom would send me care packages, with the spam and all that stuff that I hated. And the guys loved it. So I used to sell all my care packages to the guys. I made a lot of money in that. So we used to go to hot zones, they called it, into the jungle. And we'd set up a perimeter, our company, and we'd clear out the Viet Cong and the spider holes and the tunnels and all that stuff. And then a couple of days later, the engineers would come in and level the ground, and we'd secure the perimeter for about a week. And once the engineers had their heavy equipment, their cannons and all that stuff situated, we'd move on to the next site.